Hello and welcome back to America's Show with Ali Sammarco. This week's guest is Daniel Uhlfelder, a Florida-based attorney and a Democratic activist who also ran for Attorney General in Florida in 2022. So welcome, Daniel, to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So we want to get started by talking about the classified documents case in Florida that was just recently thrown out, essentially, and may get appealed. I think it just actually recently got appealed by special counsel Jack Smith, but wanted to get your take on that. So Florida Judge Aileen Cannon, who was presiding over Donald Trump's classified documents case, just granted Donald Trump's motion to dismiss the entire case based on the idea that the special counsel appointment by the Department of Justice is unconstitutional. So wanted to get your take, Daniel. Do you think there is any standing in this decision for her to just throw out the case like this?
Well, I think this is a very unprecedented decision. We've had special counsels appointed numerous times under the same mechanism. It wasn't until Justice Clarence Thomas, in his writing part of the opinion of the Trump immunity case, where he intimated that he felt there may be some issues with how the process was done. But I think this process has been used numerous times as a part to special counsels appointed to investigate Democrats, Republicans, all parties. So I expect this, as we see it's being appealed to 11th Circuit. I think that this came out of nowhere, I think, but basically it seems to have been a response to a message sent by Justice Thomas in the immunity case that Judge Cannon then took the ball and ran with it, and now it'll go up the appeals process, and we'll have a real insight as to what this special counsel process and procedure is, because this is the first time this procedure has ever been challenged in this manner and dismissed.
So some people on the left are saying it's a political miscalculation on her part because people think she's kind of like quasi working for Donald Trump. And this is part of her decision making is part of her, I guess, like fealty to Donald Trump, and that some are even saying she might be a Supreme Court justice one day. So, but some on the left are saying that it's a potential miscalculation, that it's going to get appealed back to the lower courts, and then she may get thrown off the case entirely and have a new judge appointed. So what do you think happens next here?
Well, yeah, next, obviously, the Jack Smith and his group are going to appeal this decision to the 11th Circuit. There will be a briefing schedule that takes place on both sides. And then the 11th Circuit they will likely have oral argument, and there will be a panel from the 11th Circuit of 3 judges that will hear it, make a decision. It will take several months. Based on that decision, there can be a request for a rehearing en banc, which is basically where it gives the opportunity for the entire 11th Circuit panel to consider the 3-judge panel's decision. That decision will be made, whether they'll hear it en banc, and then if they do, they'll issue their decision. Then ultimately it could go to the U.S. Supreme Court. So this is basically prolonged this case, months, possibly years down the road. And so once it is final decision is made, you're right, there may be, depending on what the decision is and whether it is sent back to the trial court, there may be a decision made as to whether Jack Smith and his team would seek to, disqualify Judge Cannon and ask for a different judge. That would be way down the road, but I've heard that as a possibility.
Wow, yeah. So that would be way after the election, correct?
Yes. The election is 4 months away. The appeal is filed. There's a briefing schedule that requires initial briefs, response briefs, reply briefs, oral argument. We're talking way past the election for any determination as to the viability of this decision.
Changing topics, Donald Trump, as we all know now, just got shot in the ear at a rally just a few days ago. So a lot of people are saying this helps him. So people are saying it doesn't change much of anything. What do you think this changes about the race, and does it change anything in a tangible way?
Well, I think, first of all, any type of violence of this nature is highly problematic. It's dangerous. It's not. It's attacks the viability of our democracy for individuals to think they can take action such as this and try to assassinate a presidential candidate. So, big picture, it's a really horribly damaging to our process that these types of things happen. They've happened in our past with presidential candidates, sitting presidents. And when you start down this violence road, it's really hard to stop it. So that's why I think the candidates and the parties, everyone needs to focus on the debate about the issues and not the rhetoric and all these things that get people, whatever reason this person did it, he did it, and an innocent person was killed. Several people were injured, and then presidential candidate Trump was shot. And I don't know in terms of what this does for an election. I know what it does if this is not addressed, what it can do to our democracy. Then it basically, we live in a country where there's supposed to be rules, there's supposed to be processes, voting, elections, where if you disagree with a candidate, then you participate. So, this is a dangerous road, and I think these next few days and weeks as to how people respond and address it are going to be really important as to how down the road these types of despicable type of acts of violence do not happen again. So, it's really disappointing. I think that it needs to be addressed. I think both candidates, both parties need to step up and address it. I think President Biden has. I haven't, I've heard different things about the Republicans, but it's unnecessary. And the rhetoric that is going on, there's been violence. January 6th, there was, violence against Speaker Pelosi's husband. There was violence of the shooting of the baseball game several years ago. We've had President Kennedy, his brother. There's been a lot of in our history, and it's too early to tell what this means historically, but the way people react to it in the immediate aftermath is going to be very important.
Yeah. It just heightens tension like all around. It feels like there's now more concern about President Biden's safety or even RFK Jr.'s safety because of the threat of retaliation or something like that. So
I think these rallies, what this may, I don't know what the ultimate investigation is going to show, but certainly when you have an outdoor event, there's added, I'm not a security expert, and everyone's become security experts, it seems like. But yeah, I mean, it seems to me that it's inexplicable how this could have happened based on where that person was located. Certainly, there will be an investigation to determine. As they come in, but it's open eyes, I think, to a lot of people as to how security needs to be in place for not just the candidates, but the people coming to these events. I mean, somebody just how it happened, how it can be prevented, died, and outdoor events like that, they need to be something that needs to be clearly. We want to caution all these candidates. Certainly, an indoor event, they're able to check secure. And also the people that attend these events, because they have, they come to these events as part of a democratic process. And whether you agree or disagree with what is said there, certainly families should not be fearful of attending these events.
Right. It feels like this is another thing to add to the list of public places where a shooting could potentially happen.
Yeah. We have. Yeah, I mean, we've had, we've almost gotten numb to the number of school shootings at places of faith. Now we have an open political event where former President Trump is shot. Yeah, I think the underlying issue is, what are we going to do about gun safety in this country? That seems to be underlying all these. This 20-year-old young man was able to, through I guess his father, legally obtain these weapons. I don't know. I'm also not a psychological expert, but a 20-year-old that has these weapons and travels to a political event, there's something seriously wrong with him. And has he got a mental illness? Has he got something that's not being treated? because we see that these historically and just recently that there seems to be a similarity in the folks that are perpetrating these acts. They're, for whatever reason, they are appear to be white male, predominantly in a certain age category, that are doing these things on their own purportedly, and they're clearly, for someone like this to do this, I can't imagine there were not signs of some sort of issue with this young man, that either his family or somebody should have really. This just doesn't happen out of the blue, in my opinion. I'm not. Again, I'm a lawyer. I'm a political activist. I'm not a psychiatrist, but clearly, for this young man to go to the steps to do this and to have explosives in his car, and in this day and age with social media and computers, it seems like hopefully this investigation will be able to determine maybe what some of the warning signs were for him and what we can use in future to make these events safe for the participants.
I think the odd thing about it too is that he was only 20, but he was a registered Republican. And so some people are saying, well, he might have just been registered as a Republican to vote against Donald Trump or whatever it is. But to me, I find that really strange. And his classmates said he was definitely conservative in their opinion. So I just think, like, is it possible? Did he, target this event not because it was Donald Trump, but because it would create the most mass hysteria and the most press coverage possible?
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly he's very young. I mean, he was a registered Republican. I'm reading reports that there is they even had Trump signs in their yard. Um, so this shows that this is not a someone of this to do this is not based on a party or not a party. What are they? I mean, he's a registered Republican. His family apparently had Trump things in their yard at some point. We have people saying he may be conservative. Whatever his registration as a party, something got him to that point to do this, and it needs to be investigated. How does somebody of this age and level of maturity and just go and do this and almost kill assassinate the presidential candidate? And I think one of the problems that you see is that there's an automatic attempt to label, okay, he's a Democrat or he's a Republican or I mean, that's, I think that's not the main factor in this. I mean, he's only been registered to vote for 2 years, so I don't know, yeah, I think the party registration, there's too much talk about that rather than about mental illness, whether it's, health issues, things that are precipitating this. And I don't think, it is certainly dangerous for the current vice presidential nominee, J.D. Vance, to somehow say that rhetoric by Biden directly led to this. I mean, of all the comments I've heard of elected officials, particularly one that's, a nominee for vice president, that is one of the most problematic things I've heard, because that is basically blaming the Biden administration for this, which there's no proof of that, and there is no proof of that, and certainly he has no proof within a couple of days to make that statement, and then to make that statement, then he get rewarded with being on the nominee for it. So I think people like that have an obligation to not say those things. This guy went to Yale Law School. He's a smart guy. To say that is, and the effect of that really is not helpful at all. So of all the things I've seen a lot, everyone's seen a lot in the last few days, but the comment by him is one of the most troubling I've seen. And then his reward for that comment is even more troubling. It's basically saying, hey, there's everyone's saying the Republican, oh, we're going to dial it down. And that's just really throwing more gas on a fire. So hopefully, and I haven't seen anybody rebuke him for that on the Republican side. I haven't seen any newspapers or media say, "Hey, what's going on? This just happened 3 days ago, and this guy basically throws glass on this fire, and what happens? Oh, he doesn't get rebuked; he gets rewarded for this position." And so that's what people are seeing, and that's what I'm saying, that the immediate aftermath of this is really going to be critical, and things like that are not helpful. at all.
Yeah. It felt like I mean, he said that before we even really knew anything about the shooter. So, like, that was the narrative he was going to run with. And then to publicly say that when at the time everyone's saying we all need to tone down the rhetoric, we need to cool it down, stop blaming each other. And Donald Trump says he's going to do the same thing, right? And then 24 hours later, he's writing a message about a radical left witch hunt about all of his court cases. So I think it just shows you they're not capable of
Yeah,
toning down the
no,
rhetoric, even if they say they want to, or they say they want to unite the country. I mean, Donald Trump is not capable, and now he just chose JD Vance as his vice president, and we know that JD is not capable. So I think that is really troubling for the country as a whole. So now that we know JD Vance is going to be his running mate alongside him, do you think that he is a good pick, or do you think that he adds any voters that maybe previously weren't going to vote for Trump, or is it just kind of like someone who is going to be loyal to
I
Trump in a
think you
sense?
just hit on the head. I think Trump was looking for somebody that he believes would be loyal to him, and particularly because of his last vice presidential pick was picked purportedly, I think, in large part on he felt he would be loyal and maybe at some point make certain people feel more comfortable with him because Pence was somewhat, I guess, in the establishment. But for whatever reason, I think loyalty. I don't know why he believes JD Vance is going to be loyal to him, particularly because of all these things he said about him
Right.
in the past few years. But for some reason, he feels he's loyal to him, and I guess I don't. I think that would be the number one factor: someone that's not going to step on his toes, is going to do what he says. What Trump tells him to do. And that seems to be his mo. Is that the people he wants around him are people that will do what he says, and for whatever reason, this guy fits in that category.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I mean, some of the things JD Vance said about him were really horrific, like calling him America's Hitler or obnoxious or reprehensible, or he said everyone who votes for him is an idiot. Like, those are not normal things to say about someone and then to make a total 180 about them. And it's not like they were running against each other in a primary or anything like that. These were just offhand
I think it
remarks.
shows that somebody
So,
like that basically will say anything. I mean, like Trump, it depends on when where he is and what he's talking, who he's talking to. I mean, there's no consistency. There's no level of morality or consistency or humanity. I mean, this guy says he's Hitler, like Hitler, and now he's his vice presidential. And you're right. He didn't. He wasn't
right,
running against Marco Rubio. He said a lot of things, but he was at the time running against him. Lindsey Graham said a lot of things,
right.
but this guy had no. He was just. I guess he was speaking what he believed at that time, or he was speaking what he wanted people to hear. But we don't need people in those positions that are just saying things that people want to hear, or at that time want to hear, because that's what leads to that's a lack of leadership, and that's a lack of consistency. So I think his pick. I'm not particularly impressed with his pick. I'm not surprised by his pick. I think he was also supported by a lot of technology billionaires like Elon Musk and David Sachs and folks like that who have been propping him up. So he's. I don't think whether people vote about the vice president. I think whether they actually that plays a large part of people's decisions. I don't think it's as much as that maybe people think. I think people know who Trump is.
Yeah,
you know, I don't think this is a positive or negative for people that are supporting him. I mean, I don't
yeah.
think he's particularly good. I don't think he's a good person for this type of position. But is it going to affect the election? I don't think so.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment. And like you said, you were mentioning Marco Rubio. I think some people thought Marco might be a good choice for VP. He's a senator in your home state of Florida. Did you think he was maybe a better choice,
I
or
didn't
what
think
did
he
you
would
think?
ever be selected. I mean, there was some complications there with them both being from Florida. That would have created some confusion about him having to step down, and it would create a ripple kind of difficulties. And I think Rubio, I didn't think that was ever going to happen. I don't think
Yeah.
Trump sees Rubio as a loyal soldier.
Hmm.
So I think that was maybe just talk. But I think somebody like Vance, that's inexperienced. You know,
Yeah.
Rubio's been in whatever you think about it. He has been in the Senate for a long time, and Vance has been, I think, we're 18 months. He's been a U.S. senator before that, he wrote a book, I think, and basically um, he was a venture capitalist. And I mean, he has no experience. So, I mean, I think maybe Trump feels he's more malleable and basically.
Valuable. Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Daniel, for your insights on the classified documents case and recent shooting and the VP and all the things. So we are so grateful for you joining us.